Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Welcome back to the channel, you lovely people. It is time to do some new videos, so I'm probably going to be jumping around a little bit, and I want to stay with the NES for a little bit, because I love that console. So for the first video, I want to talk about the GOATs of the NES console. Because the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, wasn't just a games console, it was a revolution. It introduced millions of people to the world of video games and laid the foundation for everything that followed. While the NES library is massive, a few titles stood above the rest as absolute legend. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 7 of my top 20 NES games. And I want to hear from you guys. Do you think these are right? Do you think these are wrong? And I want to hear your top 5 NES games and why. So put them in the comments below. Remember, you're probably going to know what these games are, but this is just my opinion. If you do want to hear more of me, we've got our weekly podcast, and you can find that wherever you get your podcasts from. And we've got a Patreon where you can get actively involved in the podcast and you get your own additional show. Right, let's get into this, shall we? 7 of the GOAT games for the NES. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I know some of you are going to be going, what? This one? Why not Turtles 2 or Turtles 3? Well, I'm not saying they're not in the list either, but I like the original game. Although it really sometimes hasn't got anything to do with Turtles, it was part of my childhood. It was a massive game, and it was hard as balls. We all know it's so hard. But let's be honest, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were a commercial blockbuster. This game sold over 4 million copies worldwide, which cemented it as one of the NES's top-selling third-party games. Despite that frustration, especially the notorious dam level with the electrified seaweed, its ambition was undeniable. Now, I will say about the seaweed, that level was so hard, I actually made a t-shirt of it that I was one day planning to sell because I thought it was quite good. This game wasn't just a side-scroller, it was a game that dared to mix top-down exploration, action platforming, and even vehicle sections in the Turtle Van. On IGN's Top 100 NES list, TMNT didn't crack the top tier, but its inclusion as an honourable mention reflects the cultural footprint it left. Meanwhile, Retro Gamers magazine frequently acknowledges TMNT as one of the most discussed NES games of the 80s, highlighting how deeply it resonated despite its flaws. The music, which doesn't have the original theme tune, which is a pain in the arse, but especially the overworld theme, remains buried into the memories of players who gritted their teeth through the game's brutal later stages. The ability to switch between turtles added strategic depth that was ahead of its time, and made losing one of them more painful. Oh god, yeah, I lost so many during the seaweed level, it was ridiculous. Each turtle did play differently, but that was somewhat because of how far their weapons could reach, and we all know the best turtle in this game, which I hate to say, is Donatello because of that bow. Like, I hate Donatello. You can have a go at me in the comments. I don't like Donatello. I'm a Leonardo guy. Leave me alone. But Donatello's bow was absolutely broken to protect Donatello at all costs. But this mechanic being able to change it meant you could actually make the playthrough harder or easier depending on which turtle you wanted to use. Although later TMNT games do eclipse this entry in terms of polish, the NES original was where it all started for console players. It was the 7th best-selling NES game not made by Nintendo, which does speak volumes. Konami's mastery of the NES hardware, even when publishing through its Ultra Games label due to Nintendo's strict licensing rules, showed the game's impressive visuals and tight controls. Now, this game has been referenced in various hardest NES games lists, including GameSpot's and Watch Mojo's, but don't worry, it ain't the hardest game, that's coming up later. But being so difficult adds to its enduring appeal. Like for retro gamers today, beating this game is a badge of honour, and yes, I have beaten this game. While it's not the top of critics' lists due to that brutal difficulty, fans' polls often rank it high due to that nostalgia-focused retrospective. Like, it's a flawed gem, don't get me wrong, but it is a gem. It helped bridge the gap between comic book culture and mainstream gaming, proving that licensed games could be massive hits. And let's be honest, the box art is absolute fire having their original red bandanas. I don't care what anyone says, it looks cool. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also helped the foundation for co-op and character-driven gameplay in future franchises, because we all knew this game needs co-op. A single-player mode is not the one we need 2 players going at all times. But this game remains a nostalgic staple in NES retrospectives, and despite its challenge, it's remembered fondly by those who grew up mastering its mechanics. Because let's be honest, whenever you talk about the NES, this game is always going to get mentioned. And I love the Turtles. Except Donatello. Deal with it. Castlevania. Okay, calm down. Castlevania 3 is in the top 20. Alright, but I'm just not talking about it for this video. But I still love the original game. Castlevania regularly ranks in the top 20 NES games of all time in publications like IGN, Game Informer, and Nintendo Power. And it wasn't just great for its time, it helped define the very notion of atmospheric platformers. It introduced the moody aesthetic rarely seen on the console, with the gothic architecture, flickering torches, and looming enemies straight out of a Universal monster movie. The gameplay emphasised precision. Simon's whip had delay, jumping had weight. Well, his jumping was an absolute farce. I jumped this way, okay, I'm definitely jumping that way. Enemies were intentionally placed to challenge rhythm and reaction, and unlike many contemporaries, Castlevania wasn't about speed, it was about strategy. Managing your sub-weapons and your hearts, finding secret health items behind breakable walls, because who doesn't love wall chicken? That surely is one of the most dangerous things ever to exist. I would never eat any chicken I found on the floor, let one that's hidden behind a wall. But the main thing here is mastering those enemy patterns made every room a mini little puzzle. As for side weapons, just use the holy water, because it puts a lot of the bosses, yes the bosses, in a stun lock. Oh yes, exploitation, we love it. Now what really pushed Castlevania into legendary territory was its boss design. Facing off against classic horror villains like Frankenstein's monster, Death, and Dracula himself felt epic in an 8-bit form. And these bosses just weren't palette swaps either, they had unique patterns, animations, and required specific strategies, or just use holy water. The Dracula fight in particular remains one of the most memorable final bosses in NES history. Critics often cite Castlevania as one of the first games to successfully merge gameplay and tone. Its horror themes weren't just window dressing. The gameplay felt oppressive and haunted. The visuals, with their crumbling gothic backgrounds and candlelit corridors, told a story of their own. And this is achieved on a system with serious hardware limitations, making it all impressive. The soundtrack, oh my god, the soundtrack, oh it's so good. Including tracks like Vampire Killer and Wicked Child are considered some of the best 8-bit tracks ever composed, regularly making appearance on retro game playlists and symphony covers. The music in Castlevania didn't just complement the mood, it defined it. Even today, covers and remixes of these tracks remain popular in video game music circles, and I'm not gonna lie, whenever I hear the Castlevania music, I'm like, come on! Yeah, let's go! Let's go! You all know it's true. Castlevania also gets credit for being one of the first NES games to offer true replayability. It's a difficult game, but its fair design encouraged mastery, and unlike linear arcade ports, it felt like a handcrafted console-first experience. The secrets and the hidden power-ups added to its longevity and inspired players to return again and again to improve their runs. Today, it's enshrined in the Video Game Hall of Fame, and its influence is clear in everything from Dark Souls to Bloodstained, well, clearly Bloodstained because that's a spiritual successor. Many developers have called it the game and then taught them how to build atmosphere. It kickstarted a franchise that would evolve into the Metroidvania design later on, a genre that remains beloved today. Castlevania as a whole, can be seen in modern indie titles like Hollow Knight and Axiom Verge, which borrow its careful balance of challenge and exploration. This enduring legacy has ensured its place not just in NES history, but in the broader conversation about what games can be. Castlevania doesn't tell a story, it made players feel it, with every jump, whip, and candlestruck. And also, we don't like stairs. How he does not like stairs. You go up them, you go through them, you're dead. What? Make it make sense, Konami. Make it make sense. Ninja Gaiden. Yeah, remember what I talked about difficult games? Ho ho, Ninja Gaiden just entered the chat. Ninja Gaiden wasn't just another platformer, it was a groundbreaking title that blended high-octane action with intense cinematic storytelling rarely seen on the NES. This game famously pioneered the use of cutscenes to tell a complex, engaging narrative, a technique that made players emotionally invested in Ryu Hayabusa's quest for revenge and justice. These cutscenes delivered the dramatic flair and cliffhangers and gave the game a serial TV show vibe, setting a precedent for storytelling in video games. And I couldn't believe it. I played this for the first time recently for the podcast, and I was absolutely blown away watching those cutscenes. I was like, this is on an NES? What? This is amazing! Now, the premise centers on Ryu, a skilled ninja fighting against an evil cult called the Doomsday Cult, that seeks to unleash an ancient demon onto the world. The story felt epic of its time, weaving in themes, honor, mystery, betrayal, and that ancient monster stuff. Unlike many NES games with simplistic plots, Ninja Gaiden's tale was intricate, with twists that unfolded as you progressed through the stages. Gameplay-wise, Ninja Gaiden set a new bar for precision and challenge. The controls were tight, allowing Ryu to jump, slash, and climb his wall fluidly. The wall climb mechanic was revolutionary, introducing vertical exploration and tactical evasion that added depth to the side-scrolling action. Each level was packed with tough enemies, traps, and platforming sections that demanded skill and timing, and the goddamn fucking birds. Swear to God, the moment you even clip a screen, like you go, oh, the bird comes back. I'm like, you bastard birds, they come from goddamn everywhere. At some point later on in the game, they're just like, right, throw everyone. We've got birds, we've got grannies that look pissed off, demon women, soldiers, karate men, just throw them all in. And the moment you go left and right, they appear again! Again! I goddamn hate them. Now, what made Ninja Gaiden legendary was that brutal difficulty paired with tight design and the fucking birds. Players had to learn and memorize enemy patterns, the level layouts through trial and error, rewarding mastery rather than brute force. This is literally Castlevania, cranked up to 11. The challenge combined with the game's pacing gave an addictive quality that kept players hooked for hours. The visuals showcased detailed sprites, smooth animation and varied environments, from dark cityscapes and temples to icy caves and ancient ruins. The attention to detail helped immerse players in Ryu's dangerous world. The soundtrack also featured intense, memorable tunes that perfectly complemented the game's fast-paced action and tense atmosphere. Critically, Ninja Gaiden was praised for raising the standard of the NES action games, influencing future titles with its mix of story, cinematic presentation, and gameplay mechanics. It was one of the first NES games truly to integrate narrative and gameplay seamlessly, providing that 8-bit games could tell compelling stories. Its legacy persists strongly today. The Ninja Gaiden series became a cornerstone franchise for Tecmo and later Team Ninja, evolving into some of the most respected action games on modern consoles. Like the NES original still remains a cult classic and is often cited as one of the hardest and most rewarding platform games ever made, and the Ninja Gaiden series itself still remains as new games are about to come out. Moreover, Ninja Gaiden's cinematic approach influenced many genres, paving the way for story-driven action games. Its impact can be felt in modern titles that blend narrative depth with intense gameplay challenges, cementing its place in video game history as a true trailblazer. The Legend of Zelda. Now, The Legend of Zelda broke new ground as one of the very first open-world adventure games, fundamentally changing what players expected from a console RPG. Its premise was deceptively simple: guide a young hero named Link on a quest to rescue Princess Zelda and collect the pieces of the Triforce to defeat the evil Ganon. But beneath the surface was an expansive world filled with secrets, puzzles, and non-linear exploration. The story, while very minimalist by today's standards, felt epic in its scope. Link's journey through the dungeons, forests, mountains, and lakes was both personal and heroic. The narrative unfolded primarily through environmental storytelling, NPC dialogues, and player discovery rather than direct cutscenes, giving players a true sense of adventure and mystery. Gameplay innovation was at the core of Zelda's success. It introduced players to open exploration without forcing linear progression, a novel concept in an era dominated by level-based platformers. The game encouraged experimentation. Players had to map their own paths, find hidden caves, decipher cryptic clues, and solve puzzles that required creative thinking. And that's one cool thing, the map was absolutely huge here, and what would have been really cool back in the day if I was playing it as a kid, I would have been one of those who drew every single square on the map and put it all together to make like my own rug, like a carpentry rug. It would have been amazing. My nan would have been impressed. Get on this, nan, make an embroidery rug of it. It'd be cool. But now we just have modern day internet where we can just whip a map up and go, that's where we need to go. The combat system itself was very engaging as well. Link wielded a sword and a shield, but the introduction of secondary items, boomerangs, bombs, bows and more, added layers of strategy. Each dungeon introduced unique mechanics and enemies, challenging players to adapt and use their growing arsenal cleverly. Visually, The Legend of Zelda employed a top-down perspective with bright, iconic pixel art that made the overworld feel alive and varied. The use of memorable sprites, distinct dungeon themes, and clever visual cues for secrets created an immersive experience that drew players back time and time again. The soundtrack also became instantly iconic. From the adventurous overworld theme to the eerie dungeon music, the score enhanced the game's atmosphere and has been reimagined in countless sequels and orchestral performances worldwide. Zelda's legacy is unparalleled. It essentially created the action-adventure genre and inspired countless successors. The concept of an open world, combined with an emphasis on exploration, puzzles, and player freedom, has shaped games for decades. Modern titles like Breath of the Wild owe their DNA directly to the NES original. The game's influence extends beyond gaming. It has become a cultural touchstone with a vast franchise including sequels, merchandise, and media adaptations. It fostered a dedicated fan base and, importantly, The Legend of Zelda demonstrated that games could be immersive experiences with the emotional depth, memorable worlds, and innovative design. It wasn't just a game. It was the beginning of an epic saga that continues to define adventure gaming today. Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, Super Mario Bros. 3 is widely considered not just the best NES game, but one of the greatest video games ever made. It's a masterpiece that perfected the platforming formula and expanded the Mario universe in bold new directions. Its premise is straightforward. Mario and Luigi must rescue the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms, who've been turned into animals by Bowser's children, the Koopalings, and I absolutely love the Koopa Kids. The game's story was light but charming, told through map screens and brief cutscenes. But what truly stood out was the world building. Unlike the linear worlds of the previous Mario games, Super Mario Bros. 3 featured a world map with multiple routes, hidden areas and branching paths that gave players a sense of exploration and choice. Gameplay innovation was the hallmark of Super Mario Bros. 3, with the introduction of new power-ups like the Tanuki suit, which allowed flight and transformation into a statue, and the frog suit, which enhanced swimming, added incredible variety. Each level was carefully designed to incorporate these abilities in a creative way, balancing challenge with accessibility. The level design here is unparalleled, from desert ruins and giant ghost houses to sky-high clouds and lava-filled castles, and every environment was unique, brimming with secrets. The game's difficulty curve was expertly balanced, gradually increasing while rewarding skillful play and exploration, and it really was, because some of those later levels, they get difficult. Visually, Super Mario Bros. 3 pushed the NES to its limits with bright, detailed sprites and its richly animated backgrounds. The game's aesthetic remained timeless, combining classic Mario charm with new stylistic flourishes that made each world memorable. The soundtrack is instantly recognizable, featuring catchy themes for each world and special levels that have become iconic in gaming culture. The music perfectly complements the game's upbeat and adventurous tone. Super Mario Bros. 3 also introduced innovative gameplay mechanics such as the inventory system for power-ups. Yep, you can get your own little treasure chest of power-ups. This actually added a layer of depth to the action platforming genre and influenced countless games after it. Its legacy is monumental, and Super Mario Bros. 3 revitalized the platform genre and became the best-selling NES game in North America, setting sales records and providing the lasting appeal of Mario. It's been released multiple times, inspiring countless remakes, sequels, and spin-offs. Importantly, Super Mario Bros. 3 demonstrated how to innovate with an established franchise, expanding its scope and complexity without losing the core fun. And it raised the bar for game design, storytelling through gameplay, and player engagement. Today, Super Mario Bros. 3 is still studied and celebrated by developers and gamers alike. It remains a benchmark for excellence in game design and a joyous experience for players of all ages. It's a timeless classic that perfectly captures the magic of the NES era. Mega Man 2. Now, Mega Man 2 is often regarded as one of the finest examples of 8-bit game design, and it's easy to see why we dig into its layers. Beyond the crisp controls and inventive level layouts, the game introduced a sophisticated weapon system that rewarded players for careful experimentation. Each defeated Robot Master granted a unique weapon, and choosing the right weapon against another boss created a classic rock-paper-scissors style mechanic. This strategic element was a breakthrough for platformers, adding replayability and depth. The stages themselves was a masterpiece of design, balancing accessibility with challenge. Take for example Quickman Stage, famous for its relentless laser obstacles and tight jumps, or Crashman's explosive corridors. The game's pacing was finely tuned, introducing hazards and enemies that felt fair yet demanding. It wasn't just about reflexes, but also about memorizing patterns and planning weapon use. Visually, Mega Man 2 pushed the NES hardware to its limit, showcasing vibrant colours, detailed animations and diverse backgrounds. The robot enemies had personality and design variety that kept each stage feeling fresh. And the introduction of the energy tank, or the E-Tank, was another innovation, offering a lifeline through tough sections and boss fights, allowing players a margin of error without making the game too easy. The score here is legendary, blending catchy melodies with high energy and mood-setting themes. Each boss theme is distinct, helping players mentally prepare for the fight ahead. The wily castle music in particular builds tension and is often cited as one of the greatest final stage soundtracks in gaming. Mega Man 2 challenge fostered a dedicated fanbase, inspiring speedrunners and challenge communities decades later. The precise controls and consistent design made it a joy for repeated playthroughs, unlike many frustrating games of the era. Its legacy extended beyond its sequels. It helped establish Capcom as a major player in the gaming industry and influenced countless action platformers. The gameplay's success demonstrated how meticulous design, a memorable soundtrack, and engaging gameplay mechanics could combine to create a timeless classic. And Metal Blades. If you play this game, use Metal Blades. You win, and they're cool, and they're one of the best weapons in gaming I've ever seen. Additionally, Mega Man 2's character design and world building have been celebrated in other media, including comics and animated series, reinforcing its cultural impact. Even modern games pay homage through references and inspired mechanics. In short, Mega Man 2 isn't just a fantastic NES game, it's a blueprint for quality game design that continues to inspire developers and entertain players worldwide. And finally, Dragon Quest III: The Seeds of Salvation. Dragon Quest III was a landmark title that deepened and expanded the JRPG genre in ways that resonated globally. Its class system was a revelation, allowing players to customize their party's role extensively, as characters could cross-train to learn new abilities, a feature rare in JRPGs at the time. The depth of customization gave players a personal stake in how their party developed. And let's be honest, they were fighting against Final Fantasy, so they had to go, oh, how can we stand out from the crowd? The game's world was vast and richly detailed, featuring a variety of environments including forest, deserts, mountains, and seas. The day-night cycle not only enhanced immersion, but affected gameplay, with different monsters appearing at night, encouraging players to plan their explorations carefully. And also, it affects the story. There's one place where you've got to go at night because then you can hear some of the residents talking about one of your party members. Dragon Quest III also innovated with its narrative structure. The story began as a classic hero's journey, but unfolded with unexpected complexity and emotional depth, introducing memorable NPCs, plot twists, and a compelling villain in Baramos. Now, I'm going to put a bit of a spoiler here, so if you've not played Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, letting you know now, 1, 2, 3, boom. The sequel setup, where the hero is revealed to be the descendant of the legendary warrior, added a mythic quality to the story. Yes, if you played this game, you found out that you were actually the hero they talked about in Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Oh my god, my eyes were blown! Graphically, the game featured character designs by the late great Akira Toriyama, famous for the Dragon Ball series, which helped give the game a distinct and enduring visual identity. The expressive sprites and vibrant world may help exploring the kingdom a visual treat. Musically, come on, we all know these tunes are amazing. Themes like the Overture and the Hero's theme are celebrated for their grandeur and memorability, helping to set a new standard for video game music composition. Dragon Quest III's impact on Japanese culture is immense. It's often considered the pinnacle of the series and a defining title in the history of JRPGs. It influenced many Western RPGs and helped pave the way further for franchises like Final Fantasy. It also started a rumour that a law was introduced that Dragon Quest games had to come out at a weekend instead of weekday. This was actually incorrect, but what happened was when Dragon Quest III came out, a lot of school kids and a lot of people ditched off their school and work to get this game. So, the company decided, well, so we don't get people in trouble, we'll just move Dragon Quest release to a weekend. So it was their own decision, not influenced by the government, not influenced by the police. It's a bit of a fabled law, but either way, that's a cool way to have your game promoted by a story that you had to change the law for the game. To wrap this up, its influence is also evident in modern RPGs, party customization, open world exploration, and complex story arcs are now staples, largely thank you to Dragon Quest III innovations. And while its combination of challenging combat and rich storytelling provided an emotionally and satisfying experience that has completely stood the test of time. Dragon Quest III isn't an NES classic, it's a foundational work that helped shape the role-playing games globally and remained beloved by fans new and old. And I've got multiple copies of this game. I've got an original Japanese version for the Game Boy, I've got an original Japanese version for the NES, I've got a Japanese version for the Super Nintendo, I've got a copy for the Switch, and I've got a copy for the PS5. Slightly addicted to this game, yes I know. And that is it. 7 of what I think are GOAT games to the NES. Do you agree that these games are GOATed? And as I said at the beginning, put your top 5 in and why in the comments below. I want to hear your opinions. And if you think I've deserved it, please leave a like, comment and subscribe for more content. It really helps us get to that next milestone of 5,000 subscribers. Until then, I'll see everyone in 3 days for another video. You all take care of yourself. My name's been Danny. Bye bye.